So in other news, the 13th annual IPO summit, co-hosted by the Connor Group and the NYSE, commences on Friday. This year's theme is IPO Momentum, Navigating a Stronger Market, and the program will feature insights from top IPO executives and advisors for companies exploring the 2026 and 2027 public markets. Last year's summit brought together more than 700 companies, including 139 unicorns, representing a combined value of $766 billion. Among the event's featured speakers is Public's COO Stephen Sykes. The firm was also on hand for Money 2020 USA last fall, where another executive, CFO Sruthi Lanka, told JD Durkin how it's enabling retail investors to participate in IPOs. Let's take a listen to their conversation.
I think the traditional narrative around retail is just incorrect, honestly. Traditionally, retail was seen as the highly volatile and smaller part of market volumes. But that's just no longer true. We've seen retail consistently be 25-30% of overall trade volumes, and we find that our users actually buy the dip. And this is probably a result of the fact that many retail investors felt like they lost out on the bull run post-financial crisis. And so through COVID, we saw this. Through the correction in 2022, we saw this. When the markets contracted, retail investors actually plowed money in. And so that's the behavior we see even on our IPOs. People stick by the companies they believe in. And so if they buy into an IPO in public, 80% of the investors who bought into the Klarna and Figure IPOs are still holding their positions, despite the volatility.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Obviously, we just sort of celebrated the 3-year anniversary of the ongoing bull market. To your point about the interest rate pullback in 2022, what do you feel have been the biggest factors for the renewed interest across generations? It's millennials, you got younger first-time investors, older investors as well, for this renewed conversation in companies now finally, once again, going public.
I mean, the reality is retail investors, particularly digitally native retail investors, are coming into a lot of wealth. 100 trillion is changing hands. This number actually started out at 70, it became 100, now 120 trillion. And that really is moving to these digitally native generations. And that's the users who are expressing interest in our IPO access product. It's mainly millennials and younger Gen X users. And so this is a demographic with significant capital to invest. And they want to share in an asset class that's performed really well for institutional investors over the last 20 years.
And outside of that particular asset class, are you seeing a generational interest in cryptos and in zero-dated options? I mean, you name it, I feel as if the diversification of a rising investor base, which now is coming across itself, they're more liquid than they've been in the past, obviously, as they age up in the workforce. Are you seeing that interest to say it's not just the game of equities any longer? There are a lot of other financial products that we want in our portfolios?
That's exactly right. Talking about these IPO investors, the same investors, they hold 30% in crypto, 10% in bonds, 10% in cash products. If you think about the overall portfolio, a public user is naturally multi-asset because of the investing experience I described. And really, they tend to have a more long-term investment horizon, right? Our users are on the more affluent end. So they're interested in capital protection in addition to capital growth, which is why you see fixed income products. So it's truly a diversified portfolio that they hold, along with some single stock positions as well, and usually some hedges against it.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's at least a little bit of enthusiasm in the mega cap tech stocks specifically. Yes. People always want a piece of that action. And what a great week to do this interview ahead of a lot of big earnings reports for those names. What more needs to be done to level the playing field between the old school institutional investor and the everyday retail investor who is now looking at the type of suites, the suite of products in financial services and saying, I want a piece of that as well?
That's an excellent question, and one that we're looking to answer exactly, right? So why we built Public is really to put the greatest fundamental investing toolkit in investors' pockets. So you talked about upcoming earnings, right? If you go on the Public app, we're embedding AI into the experience to make our customers better investors. And one example of that is you can use Alpha, which is our AI-based research assistant, to summarize earnings calls. We'll give you the highest pulse. You can pull down on any stock and say, why did this stock move? And if it's Tesla, we pull up one level deeper of insights. Instead of saying, oh, revenues were up or down, we say they met or failed their vehicle delivery targets, which is really what the stock moves on, right? And so how do you get to those operating fundamentals that move stocks? That really is the answer that we're providing to our retail.
Thank you, Public CFO Sruthi Lanka and JD Durkin, for that interview.